The more accidents she had, the more he would get angry, and he would hit her repetitively.
He struck her, blow after blow after blow. He assaulted and he murdered because of that rage.
Here the child died, but I would direct...
The child didn't just die. The child was killed after the child was given to the person. The state delivered the child to the person who killed.
Officials in New Hampshire now challenging part of the lawsuit over the death of Harmony Montgomery. We're talking with a former juvenile court judge who's very close to Harmony's case about why the language about custody is so important. And we're on a verdict watch in the assault trial for rapper A$AP Rocky. With so much attention on the fighting attorneys, can the jury focus on the case? Also this hour, we're spotlighting a community's outrage after a NICU nurse is accused of breaking baby's bones, is now out on bond. Plus, Monica Cementilli back in court today. The jury hearing more about her flagrant cheating, allegedly planning the murder of her famous husband. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you. Thanks for waking up with us here on Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. As I like to say, it is time for some coffee and some court. We got an awesome show planned for you. Let's get started. Grab your coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Failed by everybody. At nearly every point in her short life. I'm talking about precious Harmony Montgomery. She was 5 years old when she was beaten to death by her father. I call him coward, Adam Montgomery. And her body still hasn't been found. While Harmony's resting in peace, the quest for justice for her is being dealt an insulting legal blow as the Department of Children, Youth, and Families is moving to dismiss part of a lawsuit that's been filed by Harmony's biological mother. The lawsuit accuses the state of New Hampshire of being legally responsible for Harmony's death. But the state says that they bear no responsibility because they were still in the assessment phase of Harmony's case. This after Harmony's mother made 17 abuse complaints to DCF. So if Harmony wouldn't have been murdered, would they still be assessing the situation? How many more reports of abuse did they need? And what's so tragic about Harmony's case is that she couldn't count on anybody. Nobody. Not her biological mother, certainly not her father, not her stepmother, and not DCF. She had nobody to rescue her. And perhaps if the state had stepped in and stopped assessing, then maybe she would have been pried out of that monster's hands and then been able to be adopted by the Millers like her brother Jameson. They would have loved to have adopted Harmony. But instead, now they're forced to grieve because Harmony was failed by everyone who should have protected her. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency, and as I was going back to my car, he called again, and I, again, went straight to voicemail, so I called him back, and he said, "It's her. I think she's dead." And so I got there as fast as I could.
In South Carolina, the defense case begins in the Rose Petal murder trial for Zachary Hughes. That starts up at 9:30. In California, we've got the state's case continuing in the celebrity hairstylist murder trial for Monica Cementilli. That one starts at noon. And in Massachusetts, we've got Karen Reed back in court for a motions hearing at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, we turn to our top story for you, the case I was just talking about, the latest in the legal battle on Harmony Montgomery. And this is really shining a light on how the Department of Children and Family Services failed her miserably. And we've got some brand new reaction from retired Judge Carol Erskine, who, you know, handled the adoption of Harmony's brother, Jameson. She's also a constitutional law professor, by the way. Take a look at what Judge Carol tweeted. This tweet is awesome. It was blowing up yesterday. She wrote, quote, "Unbelievable." All caps. New Hampshire is trying to dismiss a breach of fiduciary duty claim in Tiny Harmony's civil case, arguing that it owed her no legal duty of care since she wasn't in state custody, just in the assessment phase. These people are despicable. How could she still be in the assessment phase after 17 reports in 3 months? The judge goes on to say, were they still assessing her when she was brutally murdered? Wow. Boom. Drop the mic right there. But we want to talk about this case more. We're not letting this go. I want to bring in our special guest, retired juvenile court judge and author. She wrote a book about Harmony's case, A Cruel Injustice, not taking a dime for it. You can pick it up. It benefits everyone at the Dave Thomas Adoption Foundation, all of those kids who need help. Judge Carol, great to see you. Would you start, please, by telling us about your plan? As we understand it, you plan to even file a complaint about this motion. Would you explain that for us, please, Judge?
Well, I don't have, even though I don't have standing to file a complaint, what I'm calling for and what I will be calling for over the next few weeks is for federal involvement. I think it's time we started asking the U.S. Attorney's Office through whatever investigatory agency it uses, whether it's the FBI or whether it's some other agency like the Office for Civil Rights, to start looking at whether or not the state, through its inaction and through some of its willful inaction, violated Harmony's civil rights and violated her constitutional rights to not only a fair investigation, which is a procedural due process right, but her substantive due process rights. So I tweeted that out because it's in the civil suit, and I just found it, as I said, despicable. That their position is we didn't owe her a legal duty. We didn't owe her a fiduciary duty.
And Judge, everybody was seeing that tweet and cheering, yes, yes, preach, Judge. This is just one more appalling thing in the quest for justice for Harmony. It really is. And would you kindly go into professor mode for us, please, Judge? As we're understanding this, it seems that the state is only picking apart just one part of this claim. They're not looking to dismiss the negligence claims, but they're fighting about whether Harmony was in their legal custody. Why is that?
The reason that they're making that argument is because under New Hampshire law, and I think in a lot of states, you don't really owe a fiduciary duty to a person unless that person is in your custody, at least with respect to cases like this with children. So what they're saying is, look, she wasn't in our custody, and so therefore we don't owe her a fiduciary duty. Basically, we, are required to follow the regulations and the statutes, but a fiduciary duty means that you owe someone an ethical and special kind of relationship, a very special care kind of relationship where the interests of Harmony would be put above the interests of the state and DCYF. And basically they're saying we didn't owe her that because she wasn't in our custody. And to some degree, case law supports that, although the civil suit is arguing otherwise, saying this special duty was created in a sense by the fact that they had not control, but they had oversight of her case for 3 months. There were 3 months there where she was being managed by a social worker, or maybe mismanaged. I'm not sure. I think, of course, that's what they're alleging.
Right. Yeah, maybe the latter, Judge. Demetrius Saros is who you're talking about. We've got a clip of some of his testimony about what he observed with Harmony. Let's watch it together.
I did notice a small red mark under one of her eyes and some redness, a discoloration in the eye that was closest to that.
Did the defendant tell you anything regarding how that injury occurred?
He did. He said that he had bought the kids, he had 2 younger children, he bought the kids like foam swords or lightsabers, and that they were playing with them, and that Harmony was struck in the face, in the eye, and that's how she got that mark.
And Judge Carol, some of our wonderful courties watching at home may remember that witness testifying during Adam Montgomery's homicide case. There was so much more in the way of complaints that I know you're aware of. Would you kind of touch on some of the other things that were alleged to have been happening with Harmony?
Right. It is infuriating watching that testimony, I have to say, because, of course, it wasn't really honest in the sense that he was supposed to have evaluated her on July 29th and said that he did, and lied to the police in an email saying, I saw her and there were no bruises. But even beyond that report of abuse was filed by the uncle, Kevin Montgomery, who I've actually spoken to a number of times in recent weeks. And he called again later that day saying, why isn't someone out there seeing her? And of course, we know he went out there and he allowed Adam Montgomery to just sort of take Harmony out of the house and fled, according to Kayla Montgomery. But there were multiple other reports alleging drug use in the home. People were seeing needles and paraphernalia. There was an allegation in August of sexual molestation that was never investigated, at least according to the civil suit, which there should have been an immediate investigation. There were allegations of severe maltreatment, having her crawl around on a floor, scrubbing a bathroom floor with a toothbrush. There was emotional abuse. There was verbal abuse by he and Kayla. These were all being reported. They couldn't pay their bills. There was no electricity in the home. The home was, according to some reports, filthy, and that Harmony also was never even allowed to leave the home. So there was just ongoing, in my view, torment in that home. And it's just unbelievably frustrating to me that these reports were coming in, many of them never even investigated. They were just classified as additional information, and no investigation took place. And in the meantime, this little girl was living a nightmare, an absolute nightmare.
And only 5 years old, as you know, Judge. It is heart-wrenching to think about what she went through and how she had no one to count on. Everybody failed her. I have a statement from our friends Blair and Jonathan Miller, the wonderful parents of Harmony's brother, Jameson. They adopted Jameson. They would have adopted Harmony, too, if she was in the custody of the state. They issued this statement to indepthnh.org, and this was with respect to Saros's employment history. And so they said there's no excuse for how these agencies failed to protect Harmony Montgomery and continue to fail to protect other children. The fact of the matter is, no one was looking out for Harmony, no one. And Judge, you've become so special to the Millers in presiding over Jameson's case. And it's a daily struggle for Jameson, to understand what happened to Harmony. Is it not?
Yes. Of course, I'm in touch with Blair and Jonathan frequently. We developed a very strong bond over the years, especially working on the book. But Jameson definitely struggles. He has a lot of questions. He doesn't read to her. He only knows that she has passed away.
Oh, and we just lost Judge Carol Erskine. But you know what? I can pick it up here, as I know the Millers very well. It's a daily struggle. He asks where his sister is, understands that she's in heaven, doesn't understand the cruel way in which she got there. And through that adoption process and getting to know Harmony's case was how Judge Carol Erskine became inspired to write that book, A Cruel Injustice. This is all about the systematic failures that led to her death, and perhaps it will spawn some change in New Hampshire or in other states. Here's a look at the cover of the book, and again, the judge doesn't get a dime from it. All of the proceeds go to help children with the Dave Thomas Foundation. Big thanks to our friend Judge Carol Erskine for her wonderful advocacy work for Harmony. And coming up next here on Opening Statements.
Lower your voice and don't yell at me. told you before, I'll listen to what you say, speak in a normal tone of voice.
Oh, the ASAP Rocky trial full of heated moments like this one. Now the jury's going to get the case, but what are they going to be thinking about? Are they going to be thinking about these fights? We'll talk about it coming up. Plus, parents are outraged after the NICU nurse accused of abusing infant babies has been given bond. We'll be right back.
The victim had been brutally stabbed multiple times.
A single mother found dead.
An unsettling crime scene.
With rose petals scattered around her.
The suspect, a classically trained concert pianist.
Now a jury must decide, did this musician
commit murder?
I think there's meaning and significance to everything a killer does.
The Rose Petal Murder Trial, today, only on Court TV.
You're annoying, bro. Just come on. We didn't even get to the case. What are you doing here? You're not gonna keep tripping me up. I'm on
Mr. Efron! Stop! Just stop talking!
We know Willie was jealous of him. He made that very clear. So why would Rocky suddenly go from 0 to 100 with no reason at all to shoot him?
It clearly wasn't a real gun. There's no question there. It was a real gun. The prop gun is a figment of the defense and the witnesses who testified to it.
Oh, we're talking about the felony assault trial for hip-hop star ASAP Rocky. That is what's trending in true crime this morning as the jury will officially get the case today. Now, Rocky stands accused of firing 2 shots at his former friend, a member of his collective ASAP Rally, during a heated altercation back in 2021. His defense team contends, though, that it was a prop gun, not a real gun. But it's been the courtroom tussles between attorneys John Lewin and Joe Tacopina that have been grabbing trial watchers' attention. Take a look at this sparring match that went viral on Friday.
I just want to put on the record that, these remarks about being unethical is not just about having it with him. This is from a lawyer who, and I was saying yesterday on it, this is from a lawyer who asked in front of a jury for a stipulation that a shooting range was not in California when either he knew it was in California or had no idea that it was in California. Okay? So he literally asked for a stipulation in front of a jury that he knew was not true or didn't know if it was true. And that's unethical. That's unethical. And this is a guy who the Ninth Circuit just said lied to a jury in the Branford case.
Your Honor,
so I want to hear about him.
One more thing out of him, and we air everything that's happened in this case, which the court's aware of.
Stop.
He might want to stop.
I'm so threatened.
You should be.
Oh my. So after such a testy trial, what's going to happen during deliberations? Let's bring in our power panel and talk about it. Here with me, domestic violence expert, former law enforcement officer Claudia King, prosecuting attorney Anton Bell, and trial attorney Randolph Rice. Good morning to you all. Claudia, would you start us off with your thoughts, please?
I mean, who thought that the best part of this whole trial was going to be between the attorneys? I mean, these guys, they should just do a cage match and be done with it. This has been so entertaining. Yeah, I think they just need to fight it out. As far as the actual case goes, a prop gun is so ridiculous that I guess it could actually be true. I just can't see trying to say that if it wasn't. I don't know. This one's crazy, Julie. I just want to see the attorneys duke it out, if I'm being honest.
Claudia, you're right. I got to tell you, they looked like they wanted to fight, didn't they? I mean, as we were watching that clip, and we've seen it again and again, you notice something different every time. And we noticed how the judge's body language, he was standing up and arms crossed. Rocky's got on his sunglasses, like, is he embarrassed of what's happening? What a mess. This was something. All right, I want to get thoughts from Anton and Randolph. Anton, you next, please. What do you think of this and what the jury's going to do?
So I think it's a distraction. Whenever you have the attorneys fighting with each other or fighting with the judge, it distracts the jury from the actual case itself. And the prosecution has the proof. That's the problem. And so if there's a distraction, if people are focused on the theatrics and the drama of the attorneys and what's going on between them and the judge, then they can't focus on the law. And you already have a lot of inconsistencies by their chief witness, the prosecutor's chief witness. And so I don't think it's going to go well for them.
Right. Yeah, no, these two are, I mean, oh my gosh, just getting under each other's skin so badly. The judge even said to them, don't talk to each other unless it's about trial business. It is that bad, Randolph writes. What do you think of these lawyers and then also the jury?
Look, they're both fighting for their cases. They're zealous advocates, but they don't like each other. There's no love lost between the two of these guys. And so they seem to be taking it out of each other. Thank God they're not doing it in front of the jury. The judge has been wise enough to remove the jury while they went and bickered about all their little petty squabbles. But, you know, at the end of the day, the facts come down to, or the decision made by the jury comes down to the facts that were presented. And I think there's a lot of evidence that Aesop Rocky was carrying around a prop gun, as crazy as that may be. You know, it's L.A., and that seems to be something that's maybe normal for these guys as they carry around a prop gun for defense. Maybe the jury hangs their hat on saying, hey, look, yeah, it was a prop gun, and he never fired at this guy.
Right. Great points from you all. And many of us thought Rihanna was going to be the big focus. And she has been a large focus. So many people just want to see her. I mean, she's so stunning and so popular. And she's been there most of the trial supporting him. But it's like the focus has been on the fights. That's really where it is between Lewin and Tacopina. These good lawyers just can't seem to get along. So maybe we'll have another fight today before the deliberations begin. We shall see. We'll leave it there for now, as we've got to turn to some other trending news. Let's talk about the reigning NBA Western Conference champions have placed an assistant coach on leave after his arrest for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Darryl Armstrong, Dallas Mavericks assistant coach, was arrested on Saturday. Police are alleging that the 14-year NBA veteran hit a woman with a gun and threatened to shoot her. The Mavericks issued this statement after Armstrong's arrest, saying, quote, this matter is currently under review by the appropriate legal authorities. Due to this fact, we will allow the legal process to run its course, and we will refrain from further comment while proceedings are ongoing. Now, Armstrong has since posted a $35,000 bond. We're asking this morning, is the NBA too lenient on Armstrong's arrest? Claudia King, let me go back to you.
You know, I think right now they're fine because he has been put on leave by the Mavs, and I think that's a perfect course of action at this point because technically he is innocent until proven guilty. So at this point, legally, he hasn't done anything wrong. I think the NBA needs to watch this case, see what happens. If he is found guilty or pleads guilty, then they need to act in a stronger way. But right now, I think what they're doing is absolutely fine. He's on leave. Hopefully he'll get counseling, and we'll see what happens with the rest of this case.
Claudia, thanks. Anton, to you next, please.
Yes, I agree with Claudia. What you're seeing is the normal procedure for most businesses and organizations when there's an employee that has been charged with a crime. Typically, you will find that they will put them on some type of administrative leave, and then once the facts kind of rises to the surface, then you'll have some type of definitive disciplinary action. But right now, I think they are fine as long as they're going to be monitoring this matter. And if more evidence should surface to show that there's a guilt versus an innocence, then the Mavericks will definitely have to act.
Oh, I like that point, too. Is anything else going to come out? I'm sure with all the media attention, it will, if there is anything. Not saying there is, but if there is anything in the past that could potentially haunt him. Randolph, to you next, please. Your thoughts.
So the little difference here between the NFL and the NBA, the NFL actually does their own suspensions. The NBA does it team by team, which is interesting here in this situation. But what both leagues do and what the NBA does, and we've actually gone through this with some of our clients in the NFL, is that those leagues will have their own independent investigation aside from the criminal investigation. So whatever the criminal investigation finds out will be fine, and they may rely on that to punish him or take some sort of sanctions. But they will do their own independent investigation, and they may act on that investigation within the league to determine if they're going to suspend him or just kick him out altogether. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think they've done the right thing at this point in time, but we'll have to see what happens moving forward.
And Randolph, thank you for that distinction as well. We'll leave it there for time's sake, but continue the coverage. Thank you to our awesome power panel. They're sticking around. Want you to do the same, please. Here's what's still to come on opening statements. We're talking about the nurse who allegedly broke the legs of babies that she was caring for in the NICU. Guess where she is this morning? She's out on bond. We'll talk about it. Plus, Monica Cementilli back in court on trial, accused of murdering her husband. How's the state's case shaping up so far? We'll talk about it.
Not only was the defendant having an affair with Baker, but they were also swinging with other people. Her older daughter, Jessica, who you'll hear from, found Baker sleeping in the defendant's bed.
Welcome back. Families in Virginia are outraged after a nurse charged with abusing premature babies has been given a bond of $25,000 that she posted. Erin Strotman, this is the defendant right here, is accused of breaking the bones of NICU babies that she was caring for. This lady suspected of harming at least 7 infants between 2023 and 2024. She was even caught on camera. But a judge gave her bond after a mental health evaluation. How does that work out? WTVR's Elizabeth Holmes has more.
25-year-old Erin Strotman is facing charges for malicious wounding and child abuse. She was granted a $25,000 bond, but she must meet several criteria. Some of which include wearing a GPS monitor and staying at her parents' house. A judge also said she cannot provide medical services as a healthcare professional or be in the presence of minors or vulnerable adults. The judge granted Strotman bond after she underwent a mental health evaluation. The results of that evaluation were sealed after they were presented in court. Strotman's attorney said they were pleased with the judge's decision to grant bond, but prosecutors objected to any conditions of release based on the nature of the case.
That we believed that the actions were so egregious and the strength of the Commonwealth's case is so strong that we did not believe that there are any conditions to ensure safety to herself or safety to others. The court, of course, is our neutral arbitrator and has the law, and he was very purposeful in going through the factors. And so we do, we understand.
Right now, Strotman only faces charges related to the possible harm of one infant. Dominique Hackey, who says his infant son was injured at Henrico Doctors Hospital in 2023, said he and others are disappointed.
I think we share the same feeling of anger. This is something that we were prepared for, but obviously we didn't expect. We definitely don't feel like Richmond is safer with her out on the streets, even though that she has the conditions of her bond.
Commonwealth's attorney Shannon Taylor said prosecutors will continue to investigate this case, and they have a plan should Strotman face additional charges while out on bond. In Henrico, I'm Elizabeth Holmes, CBS 6 News.
We also see reporting that the conditions of this bond include house arrest with her parents and wearing a GPS monitor, as reported by 12 on Your Side local station. Wow. She's got a preliminary hearing coming up in May, so that'll be the next court date for her. So provided that everything's gone through with the posting and then the setup with probation, her living with her parents apparently is the court's plan, and probation will monitor her pretrial with GPS. Still, going back to the fact that why the bond has a lot of people angered. So let's work through that with our guest. Let's bring in somebody who's a prosecutor in Virginia, Attorney Anton Bell, our legal analyst guest on the show today. Okay, Anton, would you walk me through the process here for everybody who's going, oh my gosh, why give her any bond? What do you say to that, please?
So let's start here. Initially in General District Court, which is the lower court in Virginia, on January 13th, she was not granted a bond. She then appealed that bond hearing to circuit court on January 22nd. The judge heard whatever evidence they wanted to discuss or consider for bond on that particular day, and then he delayed making a decision pending a mental health examination. That result has been sealed, so we do not know what's in that particular report. I would probably guess that it's shared that she does not have some type of mental health deficiency that would make her a risk to our community or to herself. And so given that, the factors that go into a bond here in Virginia is you can't be a flight risk or a danger to the community. Those are the two things. And what the judges consider is the act that was committed. They also consider whether you have a previous background that involved criminal activity. Probably not having one, given the fact that she's a nurse. And so those are the factors they took into consideration, and then he decided to give her $12,500 on each charge.
Anton, thank you so much for the explainer on that. That makes sense, right? And so now that she's at home, she's undergone the mental health evaluation, what do you think is being done by the prosecutors and by the defense here as they're getting ready for the prelim, which will be the next court date come May?
So I personally know Shannon Taylor. She's a colleague of mine, and I can tell you right now, she's a tough cookie. So I know that they are looking at those other allegations to see whether there is other evidence that would connect her to those particular crimes. And if so, I am certain they're going to probably charge her with some, if not all, of those other incidents that they at one point thought she could have been connected to, because if you remember, she was on paid administrative leave for an entire year based upon a suspicion that she had previously hurt babies in that unit. And so if that is the case, I am sure they're probably looking into whether there's sufficient evidence to bring charges for that. And if that is the case, they are going to readdress bond, and they're going to ask for her bond to be revoked.
Such an important distinction you just brought up here for us, Anton. Well, there's several incidents in question, several families making allegations. The charges, correct me if I'm wrong, only pertain to one baby. Is that right? One baby they definitively have evidence of abuse of.
That is correct. They only have evidence for one case. So right now, there's at least 7 other cases that are out there that she could potentially be charged with. And also, don't forget this piece. If they have the preliminary hearing and the judge hears the specific evidence that the Commonwealth have concerning this case, the judge on his own or on her own can, we call it sua sponte, can revoke her bond, or the Commonwealth can again ask the court, now that you've heard evidence in this preliminary hearing, we're asking the court, we're in a different stage, we're asking the court to now revoke her bond. So you can readdress bond again.
That's a great point as well. Anton, thank you for that. And as you've said, we can expect the prosecutor to do that if we've got more charges coming against this woman. Tell me, how tough is it to handle a case like this? You know, when you have little babies, little precious babies. I mean, you can see why people's blood, you know, is just boiling when you hear these allegations. What's that like when you're on the end of, you know, being the prosecutor, being the one who's got to look at that upsetting evidence?
So, as you know, Julie, I just finished prosecuting a father who killed his 3-year-old toddler, and we never were able to find the body, and he was convicted of murder. And so it is extremely hard emotionally going through the evidence, knowing that your victim is someone who can't defend themselves, and they're relying upon potentially the person that's supposed to take care of them and to protect them. They're relying on that person ends up being their predator. So it is very difficult to deal with that and to kind of go through the weeds of that type of case.
Yeah, it sure is. I always say it takes a special person to handle these cases, and you certainly are. Anton Bell, thank you for everything this morning. We're glad that trial is over, you know, for many reasons, you getting justice for the family, but also because we get to have you on more when you're not in the courtroom. Thank you for everything, friend. We'll see you soon. Coming up next here on Opening Statements.
She goes, Sia, like auntie, daddy's dead. Someone killed daddy, and it was blood everywhere, and she started breaking down, and then I'm breaking down, and I'm like, this can't be true.
The celebrity hairstylist murder trial resumes today. They've been on a long break. So we're talking about what is tipping the scales of justice as they get ready to restart.
When you go into a trial, you try to eliminate surprises.
Did he ever use the N-word?
Yes, he did.
That was a surprise. The goal was to get him to lie.
Have you used that word?
Not that I recall, no.
Anywhere that he was involved was tarnished.
I was heard uttering the N-word 40 times. How do you pull that back? You don't.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? A Court TV original series. New episode Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
The state's case resumes today in the celebrity hairstylist murder trial for Monica Cementilli. She's charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder for the death of her husband, Fabio Cementilli. Now, prosecutors say that Monica and her lover and co-defendant, Robert Baker, killed Fabio to continue their affair and cash in on a big life insurance policy. Court has been dark since last Wednesday. And of course, with the holiday on Monday, President's Day, and so they're getting back to things today. Let's take a look at some of the key testimony we heard last week. Take a look.
You were asked yesterday about the defendant's family initially not liking Fabio at the beginning. Would it be fair to say that they certainly wouldn't approve of Robert Baker?
Yes.
I followed them out to just next to that valet stand.
Okay, and what did you note at that point in time?
While Mr. Baker and Ms. Cementilli were waiting for the car, they began kissing and making out in front of the establishment.
It was a voice message from the defendant, and she was inquiring. She was upset. Why her insurance funds were not being released at the time.
Oh my. Was it love? Was it money? Was it both? What was going on with Monica Cementilli? And is the state proving the case they brought against her? Let's bring in our guest, former law enforcement officer. She's a podcast host now, and she's a domestic violence expert as well, Claudia King, and trial attorney Randolph Rice. He's been a prosecutor. Now he's in the private sector. All right, let's dissect this a bit. So, Claudia, tell me, what do you see when you look at the relationship dynamics going on, you know, Fabio and Monica, and then Monica and Robert and all the other people they were apparently involved with?
I'm not sure how they had time to do it all, Julie. Quite the relationship cube going on. You know, it seems like the story that we've heard 1,000 times before, where wife gets a new lover, and together they decide that they got to get rid of the husband and live lavishly off his money for the rest of their lives. You know, I think the prosecution is doing a really good job in laying out the case right now, and I'm really interested to hear what the other murderer is going to say. He pled guilty. He got a reduced sentence, I think, of 16 years. I think his testimony is going to be really key in nailing down Monica's involvement. But I think we know what happened. They did it together, they planned it, and they wanted to run away with all the other people that they're involved with and enjoy the victim's money.
Claudia, thank you for that. I think you're spot on. Randolph Rice, talk to us here, please. Tell us what you see going on with this case.
Right now, I'm going to take a different position. I think the defense is looking pretty good right now. The only worry I have is the one email chain between Mr. Baker and Ms. Simontelli about how to work the DVR surveillance system. But aside from that, I think the defense looks pretty good here because, you know, she's asking about the different insurance policies and there's a knowledge about this will and how much money she's going to be taking home. But at the end of the day, my question as a juror would be, did Mr. Baker do this all on his own, thinking that when Fabio's out of the picture, he can then slide in and become number one? So I think at this point, the defense is looking pretty good. Now, I agree with Claudia. When he gets on the stand and Mr. Erskine on the stand, if they do take the stand, that may change and turn the table in this case.
Yeah, and great take, Randolph. You know, and I'm so glad you brought that up, you know, because we can all watch this and see different things, right? I'm seeing some comments on social media where some people are saying, I don't think they're going to be able to prove this. I think, you know, she looks bad. Looks terrible, actually, you know, in terms of the cheating and the pictures and all of that, you know, but in terms of getting her hands dirty, you know, I've seen some folks saying, yeah, I don't know if the state's going to get there. And then I've also seen the opposite view, like, oh, there's no way this woman is walking. This was so terrible. She did him so dirty. So, you know, who knows? In terms of Monica Simontelli's choice to go to trial, though, let's focus on that. Claudia, seeing all this evidence, are you surprised at all that she's fighting this? Or do you think if you know, anyone in her position should be fighting and trying the case on the facts we have?
Yeah, I think anybody should fight, and if she is the mastermind and this evil manipulator that some of us think she is, then of course she's going to go to trial, because in her mind, she's going to be able to get away with it. You know, she thinks that she can convince the jury that she had nothing to do with it. She's the poor, victimized spouse and lover whose crazy lover, you know, went and did this to her husband. So I'm not surprised at all that she decided to go to trial. And again, I think anybody in her situation would. And if she is a manipulator, then of course she would, because narcissists and manipulators think that they can convince anyone of anything.
Right, you know, very true. Randolph, you know, we know perhaps the most damaging thing against this woman is the surveillance video in the garage that she would have knowledge of. The attackers would not unless she told them. Beyond that, dovetailing off of what you just said a moment ago, do you think maybe it was smart for Monica to roll the dice here?
I think it was, and here's why. I think that at the end of the day, she first of all, she and her team have all seen the evidence. They know exactly what the state can present in this trial. And knowing all of that, they can then make the decision saying, looking forward, we know what they can put on the table, and she can then make the decision to testify herself. Now, what she may be deciding is arguing is that, why would I want to be with Robert Baker? I think there's a very interesting point that gets taken. You know, when they're at that bar and they're making out or kissing, he jumps on a city bus to take it home. Why is Monica Simontelli wanting to be with a man who doesn't even have a car to get a ride home, and he's jumping on a city bus? So I think that's part of the defense's argument, is that, look, she was living a great life, and they've made this argument that she was trying to take care of her husband, trying to live this great life. I think the defense has a lot to work with here, but like you said, that video and the email about that video in the garage can hurt her.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll see. I feel like this one's anybody's game with her. Hit us up on social media. Let us know. You know, some of our viewers are really, really into this case. So if you're following it closely, let us know what you think is going to happen to Ms. Simontelli as this case starts going. And, you know, I might have time for one last quick question. Do we think she's going to testify? We have about 20 seconds. Claudia, I know it's an early call. What do you think? You think we'll see her eventually?
I'm going to go with no. I think she's going to remain quiet, seated, and exactly where she should be.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Randolph, what do you think?
I think they need to see exactly at that moment if the evidence is needed for her to present to help her case or not. So that's a last-minute call on her part.
Game time decision. Great conversation with you both. Thank you so much. Randolph Rice, we got to say goodbye to you. We'll see you again soon. Claudia is coming with us for Court TV Live. That's what's up next, my friends. That's all for opening statements. Please share this episode. You can share it with your friends, your family. Tell everybody about Coffee in Court weekday mornings here on this show, Opening Statements.